So today on Idiot School Running, we have Ed the Jester. Hello.
On our show, we've got a guest who likes to run. Do they really? Do they jog around the place just for fun? That's not fun. Are they a professional athlete? Nope. Lining at the start with the elite. It don't matter. We've got a guest on our show because we asked and they didn't say no. It don't matter because our show has a guest. It does. Pretty much because we asked and they said yes.
Ed, how are you?
I'm doing great, Colin, and happy to be here with you.
Yeah, so I suppose where do we start with yourself, Ed? We could be here for a week listening to the story. So we'll start with, whereabouts are you in the world?
I live in Murrieta, California, which for most people outside of California, just think San Diego. I'm about an hour north of San Diego.
So anyone who is listening to the podcast, take a second and flick onto the video because Ed is wearing Ed's special running gear. And it's not like your normal running gear. Ed, tell us about why are you called a jester and why did you start running in the gear?
Yeah, actually, this is like the race I just did over the weekend. This is exactly what I wore. So I didn't start out as a jester. I started out just like any other runner. And then back in 2010, 2011, I was working on breaking the world record for most marathons in 1 year. And I just started playing around with wearing different hats just for the fun of it, because every weekend I was going out running a marathon or 2 or 3. And then and I just pick them up at the local, used clothing store or whatever. And then I came upon a jester hat, and it just seemed to fit my personality. And then my wife decided, well, if you're going to be the jester, you might as well look the part of a court jester. So she actually made me a jester skirt, which had the multicolored panels on it and little bells at the end of it. And then it just evolved. Then I found this jester suit and decided to go with that. And so that's, what I've been wearing now for the last probably 14 years of my 6 years of doing this stuff.
Ed, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. But the question I want to ask you is not about your runs, not about your gear, is chafing. Body Glide, Vaseline, do you use any of it?
I use a product called Run Goo, but I'm pretty much used to, the suit's actually very comfortable, and it doesn't really have any more chafing than, just running in regular running gear. Maybe just my body's just used to it.
So you would advise this as ultra running gear? You would say this helps in some shape or form, or because people bring out the best gear, the lightest gear, sweat wicking gear, but you would say that doesn't exist. You said wear a jester outfit, wear a suit, you can still do 100-mile races. Agreed? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And obviously, I'm not at the top of the field elite runner. If I was, I'd probably be looking at every single aspect of my gear. But, for me, comfort is important. And people think it looks like it would be hot, but it's really not. It's very lightweight and very breathable. And if my hat gets too warm, I can, pour water on it or put ice up in the hat. So it's not so bad. But for me, comfort is, important, and it's very comfortable, but it's really more of, it reminds me not to take myself too seriously. And hopefully as I'm running with other people, it kind of puts a smile on their face. And maybe if they're having a tough time, they're like, oh, the jester, he just made me smile. So I don't have to think so much about what I'm going through. I can, look at the jester and, have happy thoughts, and that helps somebody. It's great.
That's brilliant, and the camaraderie in ultra running is there for everyone to see. Since I've been in the sport, I love the people in the sport, and everything you're saying just resonates with me. So tell us about a wee bit, if you can, how short can we get your journey down? Tell us about your journey, because I know you've got a wild adventure, a wild journey, and a wild background. So we might have to run on to 2 parts in this podcast, but tell us a bit about your journey. How did you start? And just tell us your adventure.
Sure. All right. I'll try and keep it short and sweet, Colin. So I ran my first marathon when I was in high school. I was 17, and I ran 2 when I was 17. I ran 3 when I was 18, and then when I was 19, I got distracted by a beautiful young lady and got married at 19, and so we, working, and we had a family of 4 kids, and so when I was 31, I decided, I want to go back and do a marathon again. But I was kind of lazy in that I didn't go out and train like I should have. And then as the marathon day was getting closer, I started getting a bit more nervous, and it's like, oh, I got to do some long runs. So I did a couple long runs, but I hadn't really had a good running base established. And so when I started the marathon, this is the Los Angeles Marathon in 1994. So it was 31 years ago. When I started the LA Marathon, my knees were so painful that I had to actually quit. I'm going to ask you, guess what mile I stopped in the marathon?
Now, I haven't read this. I don't know about this. So what mile did you stop on? It's either something really silly, which is close to the end, or something really silly, which is close to the start. I'm going to go to the end, okay? Mile 25?
I wish it was mile 25 or mile 23 or even mile 13, but it was mile 3. That mile 3, my knees hurt so bad that it's like, I can't continue running this. So I ended up turning around, walking back to my car. Now, I didn't know, and this was back in the early 90s, but when I started running marathons, it was actually 1980. And back then, if you walk any part of a marathon, how dare you call yourself a marathon? Go home. You're game. So I didn't know that walking was okay. Now I do more walking in my 100-mile races, much more than I do running, power walking. But anyway, I didn't know it back then. So had the walk of shame back to my car, and I was told that I'd never run again. My knees were ruined. I would never run again. And the problem is, this person that was telling me this, it was 3 different people, and I couldn't get away from it. It wasn't a close friend or a family member. It was a coworker. It was me, myself, and I. And I just told myself, that's it. I'll never be able to run, marathons again. So fast forward from 1994 to 2009. So 15 years I didn't try to run a marathon. And then 2008, 2009, I went through some really difficult times, and had some real mental struggles, and was in a really deep state of depression, and actually suicidal, in fact. And my wife, being the astute woman that she was, she knew that things weren't going well, and she convinced me to go get some medical help, which I did. And it just happened to be that my therapist was a psychiatrist who was a marathon runner, just purely by chance. So we had that connection, and he said, Ed, you need to get back out there and do a marathon again. It'd be really good for you physically, but also, for your mental health. And I said, well, I can't run. My knees are ruined. And he said, well, then at least go out and start doing some walking, but you've really got to, that's part of my prescription. He gave me prescription for medication, but also I want you to get out and exercise every day. And if walking's what you can do, then walk. So I started walking, and then found out that I could maybe run a little bit, and then started running a little bit more. And then I decided, well, maybe my knees aren't ruined and I can do a marathon. And I did a marathon, and turned out okay. I was able to run the whole thing without any knee pain. And a month later did another marathon. A month later did another one. And then at that marathon, I met a guy. And sometimes, we talk about anything you want in life with hard work, but that's a big part of it. That's also timing and good luck. Sometimes luck plays a factor. And so I just luckily I met this guy who had done the Badwater 135 ultra marathon in Death Valley a number of times. Actually, I saw his window decal on the back of his car, and then during the race, I met the guy, and I didn't want to run that race because that was, I thought only people who were mentally insane would do something so stupid as run through 120-degree Fahrenheit Death Valley in the middle of July. It's crazy. But I thought maybe you could help me maybe look at doing a 50K. And so he said, well, Ed, perfect timing, because in 2 weeks, there's this 24-hour race that's close by, and it's a 1 mile loop, and you should go out and do that. See what you can do. And I wasn't really so excited about that. And I said, that just sounds really boring. It sounds like a hamster on a hamster wheel, a 1 mile loop. And he reminded me that the race I was at was a small local race, which was a 2 mile loop. And I was, enjoying that. So anyway, I showed up to that race, and it was a 24-hour race. I didn't know other than this guy. And then I met 2 other people at that race who were also going to be there. So I knew those people, but I didn't know all these other runners. And I going through the parking area, I saw all these cars with these bumper stickers, Western States 100, Leadville Trail 100, his car, Dower 135. And I was just so intimidated by all these, ultra runners, all these 100-mile runners. And I'm just this little lowly marathoner. And so I got my packet pickup with my T-shirt and my race bib number and went back to my car. And I sat in my car, and I actually almost drove home. I was so intimidated that I didn't belong there. But I had told some friends I was going to be doing this race, plus my wife was going to come out later in the afternoon to help crew me. And so it's like I didn't want to, have to face that. So it's like, okay, I got to at least see what I can do. So I didn't know any better. He gave me a little bit of advice. You're going to have to slow way down your pace. You have to eat real food, and you're going to, you have to walk. You can't run the whole thing. You have to do some walking. So I went into with that advice and did what he had suggested. And I was pretty beat up by that race. I'd never gone more than a marathon. And I was at about 2 o'clock in the morning in this 24-hour race. It started at 8 a.m. And so we're, 18 hours in. And I just really was having a really tough time. But because I didn't really understand the whole process, I thought, because they also had a 6-hour and a 12-hour and a 24-hour race, and I signed up for the 24-hour race, I thought that if you quit before 24 hours, you got disqualified. And after I told my wife, I said, well, I was going really slow. And it's like, I worked hard so far. I want to at least, stay until the 24 hours are up. So I was just zombie walking. But when finally the 24 hours were up and the dust settled, I'd actually pushed beyond the marathon and beyond the 50K, beyond the 50 mile, beyond the 100K. I'd actually gone 2 miles over the 100 miles. So that was my first ultra marathon and my first 100-mile experience. And so you might think, oh, well, then you got bit by the bug and you just took off, started doing all kinds of hundreds. Nope. It was a whole year before I did another 100. That same race, 1 year. And I was 46 when I did my first 100-mile race. I was 47 when I did my second 100-mile race. I was 48 when I did my third 100-mile race. And then things kind of took off for me from there. So I've now completed 296 100-mile or longer races. And for the most part, that's all within a 15-year period. I had 2 of those years where I really stacked quite a few in. In 2014, I broke the world record for most hundreds in 1 year. I did 41. And then 5 years later, a young guy that I sort of, I guess, inspired, he decided that he would go for the world record. And he did 50 in 2019. And so I held the record for 5 years, and he held it from 2019 until last year. I saw him at a race, and I said, well, I'll try running. I want to get that record back. So this last year, I did 56. So I now hold the current world record for most 100-mile races in 1 year.
56 100-mile races in 1 year.
Right.
And what I suppose I am absolutely I don't know where to go with this conversation, because I have your history, I have how you started, I have the doctor who talked to you, I have your 100-mile races. Like, what question to ask you next? This is a nightmare. Right, I've got so many questions. If anyone's listening to this at this point of the podcast, Ed has gone completely black on the screen. I can't see him. We don't DNF on this show. We keep going. We've had technical issues. It doesn't matter. We will finish this podcast, Ed. Ed, could I ask a favor? Could you turn your camera vertical to see if it comes on again?
Oh, good. So you can see me now?
Yes, you're
Awesome.
back.
Okay,
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, Ed, this is amazing. Ed is back. Visually, he's back. Sorry about the darkness. He's back in the light. And
Well, see, I was talking about, it makes sense because I was talking about, I went to the dark side mentally, and so you need to see that black screen for it to affect. You need the effect. Now we can be happy again. I've got my color back. Okay, now let's talk about good times, about fun.
oh, Ed, that's amazing. And you're talking about fun. So before we started, I said Andrew always comes on and Andrew asks a question. Feel free to disregard it if you really want.
If you could run a 100-miler in any fictional universe, like Middle Earth, or Narnia, or the Mushroom Kingdom, or somewhere else, which one would you choose? And what do you think the biggest challenge you would come across would be in that universe?
Wow. You know what? I'm going to have to go with this. So yesterday, my wife and I were out with all 4 of our grandkids. And we were in this little creek. We caught a few minnows looking for pollywogs, but they haven't hatched out yet. Anyway, I have a little 1-year-old grandson, my youngest, and at that age, everything they pick up, they want to stick in their mouth. And so my daughter's constantly have to take leaves and grass out of his hands. And I mentioned to her, I said, you know what? It would be really cool if we could go to the Willy Wonka chocolate factory, because anything he picked up, he could eat. So it just happens to be that's on my mind. You know what? It'd be really cool to run an ultra in a world that Willy Wonka created, because everything you see, it's like you just grab it, you eat it. There's a flower, that's edible flower, it's chocolate. You see the flowing river, that's chocolate milk. Just drink out of it. Everything you see, you can just grab and eat. That would kind of be fun, I think.
We do these runs, and the only way I convince Andrew to do these runs is telling them how good our aid stations are and how amazing our aid. Could you imagine the whole route is an aid station?
Yeah.
You have the river, you have the cows, the whipped cream. Now, granted, there might not be loads of savoury food. You have the chewing gum, because whenever you're doing big, long miles, you like a bit of chewing gum to freshen up. But you have a chewing gum that could be a full meal. Ed, you've just blown my mind. Why has no one ever created a Willy Wonka marathon?
The Willy Wonka Ultra. Hey, there we go. We can make it happen.
You heard it here first. Can we patent that? I suppose you can't patent something else that someone else owns. But a Willy Wonka Ultra Marathon, that just sounds like a dream. And that's why Andrew asks these questions on the show. That is possibly one of the best answers, Ed, I have ever heard on this show since we've started it. So I hinted that we had another question for you. And this has never happened before on the show, where someone goes, I know him. This guy turned around and he goes, I want to ask him a question. I've got a question that's been on my mind every time I've seen him and I've ran with him. And I'll pull up this ultra marathon legend now to ask you the next question.
Jester, you know who this is? It's your buddy Dean Karnassus. First of all, I'm glad you're with the idiots. I'm a fellow idiot, so welcome to the club. But I got one question for you, man. And I don't want this to come off wrong, but is it the same hat you've worn all those times? Because it looks a little dirty last time I saw you, and I thought, my God, is he wearing the same hat on all those ultras? And what does it smell like? But anyway, don't let me smell it and keep running.
All right. Well, that is so cool, because actually one of my inspirations to start the ultra scene was Dean Karnassus' Ultra Marathon Man. It had just come out recently. I read that And actually, his portrayal of Badwater, I didn't want anything to do with that after reading that. But then again, Dean has actually completed Badwater 10 times, and I now have completed Badwater 10 times. So we do have that in common. But I've seen him at different races. So he definitely is an idol of mine that I looked up to getting into the Ultra community. To answer his question, no, I've gone through literally dozens of Jester hats. So what happened when I know it's time to get rid of it, get a new one, is these start to get kind of droopy over time. Because I can put them through the wash, but after a couple of washes, they get droopy. So it's like, it's looking pretty old and ragged. As long as they've still got some spring to them, all right, they're good. But I've gone through a couple dozen.
So we talk about running shoes, and you get so many miles out of running shoes and trail shoes, and when they're done, how many miles on average would you get out of a good quality Jester hat?
Oh, couple thousand. I can definitely. I replace my Jester hats probably about as often as I replace my shoes, and I typically, my shoe company, and I'm not sponsored, so it doesn't really matter, but I run Ultras. I don't think they want to hear this, but I usually will put 2,000 to 3,000 miles on a pair of shoes. I mean, I run them ragged. They wouldn't want me to be a spokesperson, because I'd be telling people, oh, you don't need to after 500 miles. They have plenty of miles on them, which, yeah, running shoes do break down. I just, get lazy and don't want to, you get a new pair, because that money I could put towards a race entry fee. So,
yeah, because funny you bring that up. So I have running shoes, and I run my shoes into the ground. I only change them really when I can start seeing the foam coming through, because shoes are so expensive, and like part of me thinks, is this marketing, guys? Am I listening to marketing people going, yeah, you get that out, but look, I'm not racing for the number 1 and the number 2 spots here, Ed. So I'm okay to have shoes that are worn in. And to be honest with you, sometimes they feel like slippers. And I love the feel of good, comfy shoes whenever I go out running. And in the early days, I would have made the mistake of going, oh, I've hit 400 miles. I bin my shoes. But these shoes are really expensive. So you, like myself, you run your shoes into the 1,000 miles plus easy.
Yeah, if they're falling apart, or there's no more tread on the bottom, yeah, okay, it's time to get a pair of shoes. But now, I don't recommend that if someone were to ask. I say, shoes, they do break down, obviously, over time, and the support. So it's maybe not the healthiest thing. So it's like, don't do it what I do. It's maybe not the best idea, but it works for me, and I don't get injured. Now, I do go with the most cushion I can get, like the shoes that I use, the Ultras. I use the Paradigm and the Olympus, and they have a 32 millimeter stack, which I just found out recently at a race that I did, that's with a USATF sanctioned race, that's the legal limit if you go beyond 32 millimeters. In fact, the guy who was in the race that I did, he won the race, but he got disqualified because he had a shoe that was too thick. I guess he didn't know it. I wouldn't have known that. So surprise. But yeah, I like a lot of cushion on my feet.
Yeah, and after the miles, that cushion will go from 32 to maybe 29.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So just make sure you're safe. Like myself and Andrew, we see runners, and I suppose you look, and I have 3 kids, and Andrew has 3 kids, and I have 1.5 jobs. And yourself, you have children and you have grandkids. How do you fit it all in?
Well, it's this thing about, I've heard, you're trying to have balance all aspects of your life. And I'm not sure if you have something that you're really passionate about, that everything's going to be balanced. But I heard recently Brendan Burchard talk about harmony. If you can have a harmonious life, and that everything kind of seems to have its place, and maybe you spend a lot more time in one area than you do in another, but it all seems to work for you. There's a harmony to your life. And so for me, and a big part of also what keeps me sane and grounded is my wife. I've been married to her now for almost 43 years. She's an amazing woman. I mean, obviously to put up with me, she has to be. but she reminds me, that I need to spend, family time. I can't always be out running every weekend, which the last year I was gone at pretty much every weekend. And so I don't know that you can never necessarily balance everything out proportionately, but if you're happy with what you're doing and your wife is happy wife, happy life. I'm a pretty simple man, and so that works for me.
That's brilliant, and you really speak so lovingly about your wife. And I would always say that when I'm running and I'm doing the events, I'm my happiest self, I'm my best self. And when I'm not running, I get a wee bit antsy. And your wife, let's get on to your wife. Does she do running? Does she do any sports? Does she join you in any of these runs?
No, she's not a runner. She walks, and she's walked a couple of marathons, and she super supportive of what I do. In fact, in 2014, when I was trying to break for the first time the world record for most hundreds in a year, she would come out and crew me at the races and meet me at the different aid stations and was really helpful in that respect. But unfortunately, she got burned out. She just so many of them that year that's like, I'm done. You go have fun with your friends. And she understands it's my passion. She doesn't have the same passion, obviously. And she would say, I don't know why you guys do it. I understand you love it, you're passionate, but I just don't get it. I'll never run a 100-mile race. And so, I would never pressure her. And I actually coach as well. I coach people for running their first 100 or their first marathon. And so, just the way it was going to be. She was never going to run a 100-mile race. And then one day, guess what she said? I want to do a 100-mile race. I was completely blown away. And so we had a race that I've done every year. We were actually part of this race being put together. So she felt an affinity towards that, and it was a race that was close to us. And it's a 2-mile loop in this beautiful area. It's actually like a kids' summer camp area, and they have dormitories with sleeping quarters. So you actually, and it's just right off the course. So you actually, anytime you want to, take the night off, you can. She did the 3-day race, 72-hour race. So she'd get up in the morning, get breakfast, do some loops, get lunch, do some more loops, get dinner, a couple more loops, get a shower, go to bed, get a full night's sleep. And she actually ended up with 104 miles in the 72 hours and earned herself a 100-mile buckle. So she's now a 100-miler. And she had a really good experience and said she'd like to do it again sometime. So even someone who's not necessarily a quote runner can still enjoy the experience and enjoy the ultra running scene and even do a 100-mile race. You just pick the right race and, make sure you're properly prepared and go and have a good time.
Is that funny? Is that funny when you said runner? Sometimes we go, well, I'm not really a runner, but just completed over 100 miles in a race. Now, surely in my book, I see someone doing park runs, which are 5Ks or 3 miles, as runners. And for someone to run 100 miles, to go, well, I'm not really a runner. A dabble in running is brilliant. And that's what I love about running. There is no one level. There's a run out there for everyone. There's a style of running. There's different clothing, as you clearly state, for running. And we've talked about where you've been. Where are you going, Ed? Your journey hasn't finished. What's next? What are you thinking? Have you got any plans? Can you even tell me?
What I've had so many times, I've had these big goals. I've had extreme dreams, I call them, and so I've accomplished pretty much every one of them that I've set out to do. I've set the record for the most marathons in 1 year. I've twice set the world record for the most 100-mile races in 1 year. I now have done the most lifetime hundreds in a year, in a month, in a week. I have the world record for the most 100-mile wins, most 100-mile seconds, most 100-mile thirds. I'm about to break 300. I'm at 295. My next one will be number 296. So somewhere in the next month or two, I'll break 300 and be the first person to do that. So I'm looking for the next goal. I need a goal to shoot for. I'm kind of feeling a little bit lost right now because once I hit 300, it's like, okay, I've done that. I need another goal. Maybe that's why I checked out of this race that I just did this last weekend. I didn't my why wasn't strong enough. It makes sense, and if you don't have a strong why, it's hard to support it sometimes. So that's what I'm looking at now. What do I want to do? I'd like to. I think 100-mile races is totally doable. I'm 62, and there's 3 people in the world who have done at least 100-mile races. I'm the youngest of the 3 of us, and I've done the most. I've done now 295. There's a local American guy from New Mexico, Mike Smith, who's done 234. And then there's a woman from Great Britain who actually her birthday is April 1st, which I don't know. In Ireland, the same, but in America, that's April Fool's Day. And, I'm on the fool. But she will turn, I believe, 76. But she just did a 48-hour race, and she won it. She won it outright, and she's 75 years old. She did 153 miles. I don't know what that converts to kilometers, but amazing. And she's from Great Britain. So I look at her, and I'm only 62. And if she's still able to go out there and do that, certainly I can do it in my 70s. And so maybe 500 total 100-mile races is possible. They say it's always impossible until it's done. And so, someone's going to do it.
Why can't it be you? So that's incredible. So we started the show with you telling me that you're not a spring chicken, but in the terms of 300-mile, 100-mile ultras, you kind of are a spring chicken.
Yeah, I've done it in it. I'm 62 now, and there are plenty of people in their 60s, even 70s, that are still doing ultras, still doing 100-mile races, and those are really the ones that inspire me. I look at these older individuals, and I think, wow, like again, Sandra Brown from the UK. If she still can be doing this, and she's been doing this for close to 40 years, that she's been completing 100-mile races. And her husband also has done over 100-mile races. There's 30 people in the 100 times 100-mile club. And Sandra Brown and her husband are, I think, the only husband and wife that are part of that. But she's still doing it in her mid-70s. So it's like, yes, as long as I stay healthy, because if you get certain injuries are going to take you out of it altogether. And I've seen people that's happened to that no longer run, which is very sad. But if I stay healthy and continue to have goals that I'm shooting for, why not? Why not keep doing it and get 400, maybe 500?
And what's the secret sauce to your agelessness? Is that a word? What's your secret sauce to this keeping on going?
I think it really is about, and it's rather cliche when I say this, but I truly believe it. It's the attitude of gratitude. So I ran with this guy, he's 81. His name's Tim Hicks. And we both finished 100 miles. And I said, Tim, someday we won't be able to do this, but today is not that day. And he said to me, Ed, that's true. He said, and you know what also? I'm slower than I used to be, but I'm faster than I'm going to be. Now, someone who hasn't yet maybe hit their peak, that won't have that much meaning to them. But for me, all my PRs, as far as my fastest hundreds, are all behind me. I'm not nearly as fast as I used to be. So that makes a lot of sense to me that, I'm faster. I'm slower than I used to be, but I'm faster than I'm going to be. So I need to take the moment and live in the moment. I think that's important too, is be grateful for what you have, live in the moment. And so we're coming up, May 4th will be the 4th year anniversary of a good buddy of mine that I did a lot of running with, Andy Noyes. He actually passed away May 4th of 2021. May 2nd was his 58th birthday. He was my age. And I had seen him, and we actually had done a podcast together just a couple of days before his birthday. And then 2 days after his birthday, his wife woke up and He had passed away in his sleep. So he was my best friend in the ultra community, and it was really hard on me, and my age as well, a little bit younger, in fact. And so I always wore the Jester hat. Andy didn't look like an ultra runner, a little bit bulkier, and he had a salt and pepper beard. He called himself the homeless Santa, and he always wore these plaid shirts, always the same design, and he had different colors of them. And so I talked to his wife, and I said, I'd love to get one of Andy's shirts if I could, to just, if you're okay with it, if you're comfortable with that. And she said, Ed, yeah, I know how close you were to Andy, and I and our three boys would be so honored if you did that. She sent me he had a yellow, a blue, and a green. Well, this is an Andy shirt. I have now worn an Andy shirt. So when I did my 200th 100-mile race, it was my 198th, 199th, 200th. Andy was a part of that, and he actually drove me to the race venue where I did the last two. And that was actually the last time I saw Andy as completing my 200th 100-mile race. And then I did one 100-mile race after that, and then I got the shirts from his wife, Blanca. So from 100-mile race 202 on, I've been wearing an Andy shirt, including quite a few 100-mile races I did not finish, but Andy didn't finish every 100-mile race that he entered. So it makes sense. But every race I do now, I have a part of Andy with me. And so I think of that, it's been almost 4 years. Yeah, Andy would love to be doing these races and love to be even having the opportunity that he might even have a DNF, but being a part of it, being still part of the community. So I have to think about that and have this attitude of gratitude that you never know when it could be your last race. Something could happen, anything can happen. And I've lost a lot of friends, who have passed away, and they're no longer able to do this. So again, someday I won't be able to do this, but today and tomorrow, it's not that day.
It's not that day. Very good. Thank you so much, Ed, for sharing that with me. And things happen in life, and wearing his shirt is nearly honoring his life. And yes, it's not perfect, but there is that memory that you carry with you that's absolutely incredible. And I keep on saying this, I love the ultra running community, and for stories like that. Ed, I've been in your past, I've talked about what you're wearing, I've talked about food, we've went through the questions. I suppose it gets to the point of the show where I'm going to ask you, is there anything you want to say, or is there anything you want to add that if someone's listening, they might need to hear, they might want to hear?
You know what? I think one of the things that I've learned is you've got to give yourself grace. Like I said, I just had a race just 2 days ago that I didn't accomplish what I wanted to, and I had a little bit of a pity party and was beating myself up. Why didn't I? Even though I wasn't getting 100 miles in, I still could have stayed. And I talked about all that. But the bottom line is, this is a sport that does challenges. We do it. I think what draws many of us to this is we do want to push ourselves and see what we're made of, and we want to push ourselves to that edge and just be able to ride that edge. See, if we can push it a little bit further. We have that something in our brains that make us do that. Not everybody that would interest them, but it does interest us. But sometimes and it's good to set lofty goals, and we don't always reach them, and that's okay. But I think we need to be sure to give ourselves grace when we don't reach the goal, not be too hard on ourselves, and just realize, okay, can I learn something from it? What can I take away? Even though I didn't get what I wanted out of it overall, but what good happened from it? And then how can I use that in the next race? And then also, if you're in a race, if there's one secret weapon that I have, if you were to say, okay, Ed, you've completed more 100-mile races than anybody in the world, what is your secret? How are you able to stay in and continue? Here's my secret. You ready? No matter how bad I am feeling, if I can find someone else who's having a bit of a struggle or a difficulty, If I can focus my attention on them, I'm no longer thinking about myself, and I'm helping them get to the race. I didn't do that at this last race. I was so focused on me. I didn't see anybody out there who was actually having any difficult struggle time, and I should have looked for that. I should have made that my point. Okay, I'm going to find somebody, anybody that, you know, hey, how's it going? Oh man, Ed, I'm really struggling. I'm going to throw in the towel. And then that becomes the challenge for me. No, let's spend some time together if you want. What's going on? What are you dealing with? Oh man, I've got this or that, and make it my goal to get them to their goal. And every time I've done that, it's helped me. It's actually rather, in a way, selfish, because it gets me through the race when I'm about ready to give up. And it's like, if you've ever volunteered at a race or volunteered in anything, you know, you get so much more out of, you know, not just it's good to help people, but you get so much satisfaction out of just doing something for someone that you're not getting paid for it. You're doing it just out of the kindness of your heart. And it's like, you know, the Grinch, you know, his heart grew three sizes that day, you know, when suddenly things changed for him. And if I'm getting too much wrapped up in myself and listening to the voices, I've got to go outside of myself, find someone, help them. And so I want my journey to have meaning to others. I want someone to look at my situation and go, you know what? I'm inspired by the Jester. I'm not necessarily trying to push people to, if they like doing, you know, 5Ks or 10Ks or half marathons, marathons, that's great, or 50Ks. I'm not saying everybody should run 100-mile races. I think they should. They're pretty awesome. But I want them to push themselves, but enjoy the process, and to push maybe a little bit further. And especially people who've given up on themselves. I mean, look, 15 years, I did not run across the marathon finish line. And then the last 15 years, I've done almost 300 100-mile races, including a couple hundred marathons. So, you know, go back and give yourself grace and try again. And if things didn't work out, learn something from it and try again and help others. And if I can do that, and when I hear people say that, Ed, you inspire me, what you've done has inspired me, that just gives me so much energy that I can use, and it's fuel for me for my race when I hear that, knowing that maybe I help somebody else. And I think that's what we're here to do, is help others. And you know, I know Andy made such a difference in my life, and I need to that legacy that he's left, I need to, you know, pick up that baton and continue that legacy of Andy's and help others in their journey, and maybe hopefully inspire them a little bit.
Unbelievable, Ed. I'm speechless. You're brilliant. You're absolutely brilliant. You're a pleasure to talk to. You're a pleasure to. I'm so glad I picked up my phone and texted you that day, and I've got you on the podcast. And yes, you responded maybe 6 months later or something. I'm only joking. It wasn't that long, but it took a while for you to get back to me. We've had our technical issues in this, but man, you're absolutely brilliant. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep inspiring people. Even you inspire me. I'm inspired by so many people. I'm inspired by most of the people I've talked to, as you said, Dean Carnazes, by Joe Manta, his partner. I'm even inspired by my brother, who doesn't train and turns up to these races and just comes along for the crack, and he just has fun. And me and him can sit at the back of a race and just have the best laugh that we'll ever have in our life. But thank you so much for coming on my evening, your afternoon. If people's reaching out or people wants to find you on social media, can they? Yes, Facebook is probably the best place. And unfortunately, like, you reached out to me on social media that I didn't. I saw it. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry, Colin. You sent me this 6 months ago. It's the first time I've seen it. So it's not that I didn't want to get back to you. I hadn't seen it because I'm just not active on social media, and I should be more. But probably the easiest, the best is reach out to me on Facebook. And I have Ed Ettinghausen, and then I also have, it's called the Jester Nation, which is really focused on just, you know, the running community. I will add them both into the Spotify and under the show notes, and there'll be videos as well, which I'll add the details on, wee clips of this. But thank you, Ed, so much for coming on this evening and talking to me. And I'm going to put out there, maybe when you hit 300, would you come on and chat this again?
Anytime, of course. That's only going to be, it'll only be, probably in April. I'll do that. So it's not too far away. And then I'll hit 300.
Okay, so here we go. Right, granted, I am an idiot. Okay, we all know me and my brother idiots. When you hit 300 and I finish my second, sure, we can catch up and compare notes. What about that?
Why not? Sure.
It's brilliant. I really look forward to it. And as I said, I have planned 100-mile this year. Nothing like yourself, but look, I'm down to two. Only another, what is that? 298 to go.
Well, and you're how old? What's your age?
I am now the grand young age of 40 years old.
Okay. See, now this is exactly why I have to keep doing this. You're 40. You're about to do your second 100. My second 100 I did when I was 47. My third 100 I was 48. So you could easily do everything I've done and more by the time you get to my age. That's why I have to keep doing this, because your young whippersnappers are going to, kick my butt if I don't, keep doing these.
Oh, I've lost you.
Uh-oh. I'll do the camera trick again. See if it does it.
Go. You finished it, young whippersnappers. I was liking where you were going with that, Ed.
Yeah, you young whippersnappers are gonna catch me if I don't keep doing this. So I got to keep doing it. Because you young guys are starting out much earlier than I started.
Well, yeah, I'm going to let you into a secret, right? So you were coming on the show, and I texted my wife. I said, I see, Rachel, I've got the Jester coming on the show. My wife Rachel goes, she's very supportive, love my wife, goes, but yeah, so, and she sent me back, I said, look at all the marathons he's done like hundreds. And Rachel goes, I think you could beat that, Colin. So Ed,
there you go.
But look, but things are more expensive these days. The ultra marathon guys have knocked up the prices, but you're going to tell me there's backyard ultras, there's other ultras out there that you can achieve that their target.
Yeah, there's many options, but the prices have definitely gone up, and that's it. It's unfortunate, but it's the nature of our sport, I guess, as it gets more popular, and they have to limit the number of people, they can actually increase the price, and we're still going to, we're going to do it. Whatever the price is, we're going to do it.
But isn't that brilliant that it's actually getting, people always say it's a negative that all the prices are going up. I think it's brilliant because what it does two things. It makes people think outside the box to do different events. It makes people do their own events. It makes people want to aspire to get to these events. And it makes these events a lot more special. When you get there, you drink in every second of that course. And that's what I think anyway. That's the positive spin on it for me.
Yeah, I agree. If it came easy, if it was cheap or free, or if you could just, I can knock it out, no problem. It wouldn't have the same, but it's more special. And in fact, I will tell you honestly, this is a whole other podcast possibly, but I wouldn't even be doing this what I did last year if it wasn't for that I had an angel sponsor. I had an individual who said, Ed, I want to see you accomplish that goal. I'll finance it for you. I honestly, I can't even tell you how much. Just imagine 56 races, and many of those, a large share of those, I actually had to fly to. I did them all in the U.S., but still, there's a lot of expense. There's no possible way I could have done it without this individual. He doesn't want anything for it. He doesn't want me to say his name because he didn't do it for any reason other than that, Ed, I want to see you accomplish this goal. I know you're capable of it. If the only thing that's preventing you from doing it is the financial end of it, I can take care of that for you. I don't know anything about this guy's financial background. I don't know if he's a multimillionaire. Obviously, he has some money. I don't ask. It's like, okay. And he's paid my whole way. And it's just like amazing. And I happened to just met him at various races. And one race I was at, he struck up a conversation with me. Ed, what's your next big goal? And I told him that, well, since it's been 5 years now since the record I had set for most hunters in a year has been broken, and I'd love to do that, and I'd love to get beyond 50. And he said, well, so why aren't you doing it? And that's why I said, well, I can't afford it. And he said, maybe I can help you a little bit. See, he didn't tell me. He said, maybe I can help you a little bit. And I thought, okay, that's great. And I thought, maybe pay for a race or two, or, that'd be great. I'd be happy for that. And it ends up to where he's financed the whole year.
That's incredible. And you know what? That guy has obviously helped you. So I think that every penny is well spent. And Ed, I can't say it enough. Brilliant stuff you're doing. And but Ed, thank you so much for coming on today to Idiots Go Running. And yeah, I hope we can catch up again. Have you enjoyed it?
Oh, I loved it. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm always happy to share my journey. And again, if it helps someone in any small way, then that to me is that's the legacy I want to leave. Not so much, wow, look at the Jester, he broke all these world records, which is great. That gives me something to focus on. But if someone says, Ed, I was really having a struggle, and I thought about something I heard you say on Colin's podcast, and it really resonated with me, and it helped me get through a race. That's what it's all about, really.
Ed, thank you so much for coming on today.
Sure thing.